Hello, YouTube. My name is Alan, and it's that time once again. Let's talk metal. I've been recording several videos lately, and the lights are down in them, so apologies if that's throwing off the visuals for some folks. But with the heat index at something like 107 degrees outside currently, so keeping the lights turned off to keep the place a little bit cooler just makes sense. There's nothing back there you haven't seen before. For today's video, we're going to be talking about metal bands that really invest in science fiction, the connection between the two. This could be a pretty big topic, and it's something we might tackle on heavy metallurgy at some point. We've talked about it, and while there are a lot of bands that have invoked sci-fi elements, it also feels like there's a bunch of very obvious ones, and then you have to start racking your brain to find some of the other ones. So it feels like the kind of show where people could inadvertently step on each other's toes and pick the same things quite frequently, which might make it a little bit of an awkward topic for a 3 hour live stream. Don't know. There might still be enough material to mine for an episode one day. In the meantime, well, I'm just going to pick three bands, and it's just me, so I don't have to worry about somebody stealing my picks because there's nobody else here. But yeah, science fiction and heavy metal have a long-running history, but I feel like it does play second fiddle to, say, fantasy. Actually, maybe even plays third fiddle to things like horror and gore. There are other themes that are more popular in heavy metal than science fiction. You think about a lot of the classic 80s bands, with one or two notable exceptions, fantasy was a common theme that many of them went for. I think things like the release of the Conan the Barbarian movie, the one with Arnold Schwarzenegger done in the early 80s, it- that movie had, a big impact on a lot of things. Early releases by bands like Manowar and Virgin Steel also leaned into that kind of medieval sword and sorcery, high fantasy stuff. Gareth Ungle, same thing. Eh, Manila Road, same thing. Omen, same thing. And so a lot of bands kind of followed in the wake of that, while fewer went the sci-fi direction. But I think there are a lot of obvious reasons science fiction would appeal to many heavy metal fans as well. It's still a big, big source of escapism. It's escapism with a capital E for sure. Um, so I'm not sure why it isn't maybe as prevalent as some other themes. Maybe it's a little more complex to transfer science fiction into heavy metal music. I don't know. Maybe it's just one of those things that took a little while longer to catch on. But regardless, there have been a lot of bands that have leaned into it. And I've picked three bands, sort of different styles and from different eras as well. I'll play a few clips of some of these. I tried to pick some things that weren't so obvious. Like Voivod, yeah, okay, we get it. Voivod does science fiction. That's fine, nothing wrong with it. But that one's obvious enough. I decided let's go with some things maybe people haven't heard as much about before. First up, I don't have a physical copy of this because it's out of print and they're kind of hard to get and kind of pricey, so I've only purchased it through Bandcamp. But first thing that sprang to mind for me was Timeghoul. Timeghoul was a band from Missouri. Didn't release an actual album in their day, just some demo material, but it was collected and released. And yes, you can get CDs of this. I think it was done through like Dark Descent, but it's been like a decade, so yeah, not available currently. And as I said, copies on the secondary market are a little bit expensive right now. When you hear the music, I think you'll understand why. So without further ado, let's play a clip here. And as usual, might skip ahead a little bit in the clip if there's a long intro. And I believe for this first track I've chosen, there is kind of a long intro, so I'll probably rapidly skip towards the middle of the song. This is a track called Rain Wound. So even just from that bit, you're gonna hear there's a lot of stuff going on here. Different vocal styles, quick changes in tempo. And while the sci-fi elements may be hard to make out with those, lower deathly metal vocals, yeah, they're singing about, kind of, crazy spacey stuff all over this. Let's do a clip from one more track and then talk about them just a little bit more. I think this is my favorite song by the band. It's called Boiling in the Hourglass. Boiling in the Hourglass. Yes. Kind of highlights just how all over the place Timeghoul could be. You have that insane opening with that just kind of brain melting guitar sound. It sounds like some kind of emergency signal going off on an alien spaceship. And then everything kind of quickly comes to a stop, and you have this weird, serene, chanted vocal section. All that tension they had built is just immediately released. And you have that weird sedate part, which they do in other songs as well. And then it kicks right back in with, sort of classic early 90s death metal, which is when these demos date from. Double check the dates over here on this other screen. But yeah, we're talking like 92 and 94 for this material. Not a whole lot sounded like this in 92 and 94. You could say, okay, Nocturnus, they did have sort of a sci-fi thing going on, but I don't know if Nocturnus really sounded this out there most of the time. I think you can hear footprints of Morbid Angel in here. I don't think that's a stretch whatsoever. And I think you can hear this when you listen to some more recent bands. Blood Incantation comes to mind. Probably drew some influences from Timeghoul. I don't know if that's on the record somewhere. If it is, yay, great for me. I figured out what everybody else already knew without looking it up. Uh, what is it with Missouri? I'm thinking, Timeghoul from Missouri. Weird place to have such an esoteric band come from, but then I thought, isn't Anacrusis also from Missouri? You get some weird and cool metal coming out of Missouri, it would seem. Yeah, you can also maybe understand why the band didn't go over in 92. They were probably just a little too crazy and out there for the death metal scene at that time. Especially when you consider that, yeah, by like 94 and then especially 95 with the great death metal cull of, from Roadrunner and other labels, nobody was going to be picking this up in 1995 to release it. Nevertheless, it's really cool that the material has found a second life in more recent years. It's available on Bandcamp for Name Your Price. There's no reason not to go name your price. When bands do this, by the way, please do throw them at least a few bucks. Don't just, do $1 or 99 cents or something. That's, yeah. I mean, I can't stop you. I'm not going to yell at you if you do, but if they're giving you the chance to just name anything, throw them a handful of bucks at least. You're buying their music. Maybe show them that you appreciate them making it available. They don't have to. And this is really cool music that I think you want to have available. There is some live footage of the band available on YouTube from some gigs back in the day. Yeah, just a crazy, very unique sound, very steeped in science fiction, fantasy kind of stuff. Uh, really think they're a very innovative band, way ahead of their time. All right, but it's not just early 90s death metal bands that stuck their toe into science fiction. Classic metal bands from the 1980s were doing this as well. That leads us to our second pick for the night, band from Vancouver, Canada, named Sacred Blade. They did a lot of demos, but only ever released this one album. Came out in 1986. It's called Of the Sun and Moon. It's usually written of the sun plus sign moon. Slightly quirky notation, but very slightly quirky band. Let's check out a little bit of Sacred Blade here. First off, we'll try a clip from the title track, Of the Sun plus Moon. All right, so yeah, cool sound. I like the way the song jumps right into it. There's no long wind up or anything like that. You just kind of get to that first main riff and let the vocals come in. Cool sound, well composed, very catchy, very memorable, but also kind of unique sounding. Let's check out one more track from this one. This is a song called Salem.
Children will tell a creature of Hades who works with the night. Super the power of the holy light. Angry streets, Christ Satan's child. With fear and fire, and eyes so wild to cast spells upon our children. Now fear, punishment, deliver. Hey, out!
All right, so yeah, a little more forceful number there. Love the guitar intro to it, though. It really establishes a very sort of grand and epic sweep to the music. Very clean sounding, but there's a good bass presence throughout it, too. This was a relatively small release at the time. It may have even been just an independently released album in '86, but sounds quite good and has aged very well, too. Has been repressed a few times, so you can find copies of it for a reasonable price. They always played up the sort of, cosmic, psychic angle quite a bit, even in a couple of interviews that I read with them a long time ago. The band is still listed as active on Metal Archives. I guess maybe they're doing the whole European festival circuit and such. I say European festival circuit, but there are festivals starting to cater to more of this stuff in the US. There have been for a while, but they're becoming more visible. Things like Hell's Heroes in Houston. Uh, Bottom line, very cool album, not particularly well known. And again, the band's only release besides lots and lots of demos, but definitely worth checking out. And the sci-fi kind of leanings of it just are a cool bonus. All right, third and last pick for this topic is a band from Seattle, Washington, newer band. Uh, this act is called Xoth. And this is their second full-length album, Interdimensional Invocations, which is a really cool album title. And I like the cover art for it too. It's got a Lovecraftian thing, but also, yeah, let's be honest, a little bit of a comic book vibe with the artwork here. Also, a very cool band logo with the whole tentacle-y thing. Yeah, Xoth is not a very long name. There's only so much you can do with four letters. I think they really put all four letters to good work here with this. If you're not familiar with Xoth, well, once again, let's let the music do the talking. This, I've only got one track pulled up. This will be a clip from the track Mountain Machines. All right, so there's a taste of Xoth. Very cool and weird and sort of unique sound. They blend a lot of different things together. I've always had a little trouble describing Xoth's sound. It's like some kind of blackened version of Children of Bodom, maybe. There's obviously a strong melodic death metal component. The vocals have much more of a blackened, raspy sound. Um, Strong melodic elements throughout. There's just a little bit of everything there, but it all works really, really well. As I said, this is their second album. The third album, which came out more recently, Exogalactic, is extremely good as well. To be honest, it's probably tighter than this one. Little, just cleaning everything up, tightening things up. I reviewed it for Heavy Metallurgy when it came out a couple of years ago. The debut album, I think it's called Invasion of the Tentacube. I can't recommend that one. I have heard it. I purchased it. I think they hadn't quite got the sound nailed down. Somebody left an airlock open, and you can kind of hear a whooshing and sucking sound where it's not quite coming together. I would skip the debut, or at least definitely preview it before you purchase it. It's a band still trying to find their way, but they found it pretty quickly and released two really, really good albums since then. I have a Xoth hoodie somewhere. It's like 97 degrees before you factor in the humidity. I'm not wearing a long sleeve hoodie for this video, so sorry, just have to stick to the CD. But yeah, Xoth is a very cool band. Feels like it's maybe close to time for another album to come out. Might not be this year, but maybe next. That would be very cool. Xoth have a lot of really cool merchandise too. I am not somebody who buys a ton of merch from bands. I would rather just buy the music. That's just me. I don't have tons of opportunities to wear all these band shirts out and about and things like that. But Xoth has a lot of cool designs, and they're often very reasonably priced. Another issue with me and merch is I'm an old bastard and a cheap bastard, and when it's like $45 for a t-shirt, yeah, my reaction, of course, is always, well, back in the day, for $45, you got a ticket and the album and a shirt and still had money for 3 beers. Yes, yes, I know. Tell us about the mosh pit, Grandpa. But the Xoth stuff usually, I think, is priced much more enticingly, which is how I ended up with a hoodie from the band. So if you like their sound and you like their visuals, do check out the prices on their merch. I think they've got some neat stuff for good prices. All right, those are my three examples of bands that lean into science fiction and heavy metal. Now, let's end the video and let's talk metal in the comments down below. What are some of your favorite examples of sci-fi themed stuff from heavy metal? And again, it's okay to mention some of the obvious favorites like Voivod, but maybe you've got some personal favorites that you'd like more people to know about. Things that are a little under the radar don't get as much attention. Um, Leave a comment about those. Point some folks in the right direction so they can check out. There are a lot of others out there for sure, but it's not always easy to track things down. Things get overlooked and just lost in the sea of never-ending stuff that's released. So here's your chance to help people discover something that you think is really cool in the science fiction realms of the heavy metal underground. That'll do it for this video. Until next time, please take care, stay cool outside, and as always, keep hanging your